I'm Tracy Goldner, and I recently wrote an article about literacy instruction in Vernonia, Neocani, and Banks, 3 school districts with outsized growth on reading assessments. We talked to students about their experience with reading instruction. We also talked to the teachers and principals leading literacy efforts at their schools. In writing this story, I didn't set out to tell a story about our own services at the ESD. We knew which districts were excelling, and we wanted to learn why. Something that came up organically is that several of our own teammates have played a big role in this work. We hope you enjoy how this story came together. It highlights a mix of district-specific and regional efforts to improve literacy rates. The story is read to you by Ryan Blasquez, who oversees our literacy professional learning and other data-driven initiatives to ensure schools are working for all kids.
At 10, Paige is already working on her first book. Whenever she gets a free moment, she pulls out her notebook and writes 1 or 2 more lines of her story. She loves writing about fairies and dragons and reading fantasy books like Harry Potter. You might not guess that this enthusiastic reader and budding writer was getting reading help at school until very recently. After 3 years, she is now reading at grade level and has phased out of needing reading intervention. I had a little trouble at first, she says, but I've gotten way better by practicing a lot and reading a bunch of different kinds of books. She says her homework every night is reading for 20 minutes, but she often surpasses this requirement and always reads on the weekends. Her principal beams as Paige talks about learning how to identify the hook or the main point in a story and stealing away free moments to write. At this elementary school in Vernonia, Paige is one of many students who are now thriving after receiving the type of reading instruction scientists say matches up with how the brain learns to read. This type of instruction has been dubbed the science of reading and has been gaining ground in recent years as the most effective approach. As of this past spring, all 197 Oregon districts in the state must adopt a core reading curriculum that follows the science of reading. Vernonia Principal Michelle Eagleson says the district is all in. No one can remember the exact year, but the elementary teachers agree it was about a decade ago the shift started to happen. The older curriculums that weren't based on the science of reading weren't working for students. A new kindergarten teacher named Kendra Schlegel had arrived from Hillsboro, and she was using some very explicit literacy techniques to teach reading. This type of instruction, known as Enhanced Core Reading Instruction, or ECRI for short, is very fast-paced and gives every student a chance to practice their sounds and words dozens of times in just a minute. Michelle says teachers new to the technique can be a little intimidated by it, so she and Kendra, who is now the literacy coach, train and practice it with the teachers. She says making mistakes is all part of it. Students learn that teachers are learning too. 3rd grade teacher, Allison McLeod, has been using this instruction for the past several years and loves it. It has a really perky pace, she says. It's not boring and has really challenged the way I teach. The students practice sounds like skr and I, and then practice corresponding words like scrub and lie. She says the fast-paced technique is effective because it gives students so many opportunities to practice their sounds. She and the other teachers provide about 15 minutes of this type of instruction each day. Although this instruction is typically used with kindergarten through 2nd grade, teachers in Vernonia use these routines with 3-letter sounds to build on student skills. At Vernonia, we've built a culture of belief in students. All of the kids can read, and all our teachers believe that, Allison says. Literacy support is all over her classroom. Every student has their own dictionary, and there's a mini library that also doubles as the calm down corner. The shelf by the door features seasonal picks like the Halloween tree and Nat Geo's Weird But True Halloween edition. There's even a student of the month. A white plastic bin by the windows is brimming with Beanie Babies that Allison passes out to students who up their words per minute by at least 10 words over the course of a week. Adeline, October's Student of the Month, was proud to report that she recently upped her word count by 36. Educators at the school are thrilled to see their efforts reflected in rising test scores. After years of flat or declining scores, Vernonia is now seeing scores rise. Last year, 3rd graders jumped more than 10 percentage points. That means 3 students out of 10, rather than 2, are reading at grade level. For Vernonia, that's 20 more students who are caught up and reading at or above grade level, 20 students just like Paige. Michelle says they are only beginning. Their 5-year plan is to get more than 70% of students reading at grade level. For context, the statewide average this past year was 46%. They also have set big goals for improving math proficiency to 70% and getting attendance up to 90%. Michelle says Vernonia has been very lucky to have so much support from regional partners. About 7 years ago, the district received an Oregon Response to Instruction and Intervention grant, a statewide opportunity open to any district in the state, operated by Northwest Regional ESD. Kendra says the grant has been beneficial in many ways. They can now more easily identify students who need more support, use data to personalize their learning, and set goals and track progress. Lisa Bates, a Northwest Regional ESD teacher on special assignment who has worked with Vernonia educators on the grant for the past several years, says everyone in the district has been dedicated to the work, especially Michelle and Kendra. She says they have learned how to use multi-tiered systems of support and then put those systems of support in place so educators can implement these practices. This has made a difference for their students, Lisa says. Kendra estimates that about 30% of Vernonia's 190 elementary students are getting reading interventions. Even though that is more than 20%, the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, model recommends. The data shows that overserving students early on benefits them in later grades. Vernonia has also benefited from the Small Rural Schools Network. Other successful rural school districts have also invited them to come to their schools to shadow administrators and teachers and learn. One unique challenge for rural schools is addressing staff turnover. Competing with larger districts and the larger salaries they can pay is tough, Michelle says. The district is focused on hiring from within and training people from the community to become teachers. Third grade teacher Heidi Rice is a longtime Vernonia resident who is currently working toward her master's degree in teaching from Western Oregon. Last year, 6 Vernonia teachers participated in Northwest Regional ESD's Science of Reading 4-part series that focused specifically on understanding the science of reading research, explicit instruction strategies to engage students, and skills in data-based decision-making. That same group plus 4 more people also attended a 2-day spring seminar with Anita Archer that helped teachers fine-tune their literacy instruction and included the opportunity to be observed and gain specific feedback. Northwest Regional ESD also started offering a training on how to teach literacy called Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, or LETTERS for short, to administrators and educators throughout the 4-county region. Nearly 130 people are participating, including 9 from Neahkani. Like Vernonia, Neahkani is working hard to create a reading culture. The district adopted a new core reading curriculum last year, and 6 educators participated in a 2-day Anita Archer training. Their efforts are paying off. In 2018, 35% of third graders met the state benchmarks. Last year, that number had jumped to nearly 60%. Nehalem principal Christy Mills says her district has worked incredibly hard in recent years to improve reading proficiency, but credits a wider focus on mental health, attendance, self-regulation, and opportunities to be more physically active as the reason behind any of the academic gains students are making. It's not just work in reading, she says. Our whole system as a school and as a district looks really different. The district uses positive behavior interventions and supports known as PBIS, which helps students and teachers understand and manage their emotions and behaviors. Educators have many professional learning opportunities, including in literacy, attendance, and social-emotional learning. Students get outside at least twice a day, and most elementary students take swimming lessons, an important skill for anyone growing up on the Oregon coast. Christy says getting all of those systems in place has helped lay the groundwork for academic progress students are now making. What we adopted, Wit and Wisdom and Foundations, has really worked well for kids, says Christy. It has really changed how kids are taught. She says the students love the fast pace and focus on phonics and phonemic awareness. She says they were a little worried the 4th and 5th graders wouldn't like some of the aspects, but after years of virtual learning and missed classroom instruction, she says all the elementary students love it. When I see teachers in the classroom, it's like cardio, she jokes. It's a perky pace. It's fun. It's oral, and the kids can speak in depth about the English language. It's cool to like words in Neocani, she says. A kindergarten classroom at Nehalem Elementary School shows students how their mouth should look when pronouncing consonants. A kindergarten classroom at Nehalem Elementary School shows students how their mouth should look when pronouncing consonants. The consonant sound wall and vowels, Vowel Valley. The materials are part of the Foundation's reading curriculum. In terms of staffing, Christy says she's been pleased to see many new teachers coming out of school with a stronger grasp of the science of reading. But she says the district is careful with hiring and looks for educators who have a growth mindset, especially when it comes to learning new approaches. A total of 14 teachers from Neocani, including 8 from Nehalem, are in the Letters cohorts this year. Christy believes Letters is the best training right now for getting teachers skilled at explicit literacy instruction. The 2-year-long course covers how language and literacy skills develop in children and best practices for teaching them to read. She says the training has changed the way all of her teachers teach, and the best is that they come back from the training with new, exciting ideas and teach everyone around them. The focus at the state level has been on early literacy, but students who were in upper elementary grades when the pandemic started are now in middle school. Those are students who need more support now. Neocani Middle School Principal Lori Dilbeck has been hard at work at closing that gap. Last year, Lori restructured the schedule so that all students would get 2 literacy blocks instead of 1. She acknowledged that there was some protest, but she worked to make sure those electives were still an option. We saw issues with reading, she says, so that was her priority, and her efforts were rewarded with higher reading scores. For example, 6th grade scores rose to 60% proficiency from 50% the year before. She and her team carefully track the data and make sure every student who needs more support is getting it. She knows that when students can't read well in middle school, they are more likely to drop out of high school, so she is laser focused on getting every student up to grade level by 8th grade. We use data to drive our decision making and change our instruction, she says. They follow the curriculum carefully and meet weekly with the instructional coach to go over progress. All of the staff, not just the teachers, are aware of how students are doing. Librarians and media specialists are especially important partners in the work because they know the materials well and spend time displaying books of interest in the library and in other spaces around the school. Our librarian just emailed today asking the teachers to send them some of the struggling students down to the library because she had picked out some books for them, Lori says. Laurel Fisher, a literacy coach with Northwest Regional ESD, says she's been excited to see the progress districts are making. This is the first year that educators from nearly every district in our 4-county region are coming to us for professional development, mentoring, and coaching. This year, about 425 educators have attended our workshops so far, and an additional 130 educators and administrators are participating in Letters. In late October, more than 80 teachers from 11 districts participated in a Science of Reading workshop at our Washington Service Center in Hillsborough. Teachers spent the first half of the day using their school's reading data to diagnose literacy needs, create small groups, and get coaching on which tools to use in their small group rotations in class. The other half of the day, the teachers had the opportunity to learn about various instructional strategies and watch them being modeled. The same workshop was offered in November at the Tiger Tualatin Training Center because the October training had such a long wait list. Laurel advises districts to remember that though you can have one fantastic teacher providing great instruction, the only way to get all of the students in the school on track is to put literacy systems in place like Vernonia and Neocani have done. Laurel says using data has been the most powerful factor for getting districts and teachers to change their practices. Banks Elementary School Principal Marjorie Salter experienced this firsthand when her kindergarten and first grade teachers started using ECRI last year. After just 1 year, the data were clear. The explicit literacy instruction worked. At the end of the school year, 85% of her kindergartners and 71% of first graders were meeting their English language arts benchmarks. She says it was the first time they reached such a high percentage. Additionally, only 12% of students needed intensive support at the end of the year compared to nearly 55% who needed it at the beginning. Now in her second year with Oregon Response to Instruction and Intervention, Marjorie says that early intervention is key. She added that using a universal screener and then creating intervention plans plus providing professional development to teachers and administrators is crucial. After doing literacy work for 17 years, including 2 as the literacy team lead at Northwest Regional ESD, Laurel acknowledges that it can be frustrating to see educators working so hard but not yet seeing results. For districts with fewer literacy systems, she advises them to stay the course and follow the data. For districts who do not yet have a literacy system in place, she says she and our other literacy coaches and Oregon Response to Instruction and Intervention team are ready to help.